One doll sitting on a shelf? Not that creepy. But an entire island covered in decaying eyeless dolls hanging from trees? That's straight out of a nightmare. And then there's Chernobyl, one of history's worst nuclear disasters. You've probably heard the story, maybe even watched the miniseries, but a quick Google search will show you the eerie reality. Abandoned hospitals, crumbling homes, and desolate classrooms frozen in time like a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie. If you have a taste for the spine-chilling and bizarre, Jeff Bezos is taking you on a tour of the 15 creepiest places on Earth, ones you should probably never visit, unless you dare. Number 15. Centralia, Pennsylvania. A small all-American mining town until 1962 when the ground caught fire, and it's still burning today. The underground coal veins turned into an inferno, sending toxic fumes and flames through cracks in the pavement. Sinkholes opened up, swallowing people whole, including a 12-year-old boy who barely survived. Soon the air became lethal, homes were abandoned, and the government did something unheard of. Centralia lost its zip code. It became a ghost town, officially erased. Only a handful of people refused to leave, and they remain there to this day, living atop a fire that could burn for another 250 years. The streets are cracked and steaming. Signs warn visitors to stay out. But if you stand there, watching the smoke rise from the earth, you can't help but wonder, what happens if the fire finally breaks free? Well, we are not like Baba Vanga, so we really don't know what will happen in the future. But one thing we can say for sure is that Centralia, Pennsylvania, is definitely one of the creepiest places on Earth. Number 14. Chillingham Castle, England. Some castles hold history. Chillingham Castle holds ghosts. Nestled in Northumberland, this medieval stronghold has seen centuries of war, bloodshed, and torture. It was once a monastery, then a fortress for King Edward I, who passed through on his way to crush William Wallace. But history never left, and neither did those who died within its walls. The most famous ghost? The Blue Boy. For years, visitors heard wailing in the dead of night, followed by an eerie blue light hovering above their beds. The mystery deepened when renovations uncovered the skeleton of a young boy bricked into the walls, wrapped in fragments of blue cloth. That wasn't the only horror hidden in Chillingham. The castle's dungeons still bear the marks of torture. The chapel has an unnatural chill, and guests swear they hear whispers from nowhere. It's been called the most haunted castle in Britain, and those who visit never argue. Number 13. Nagoro, Japan. A town where the living are outnumbered by the dead, or at least by something standing in for them. Nagoro, a remote village in Japan's Aya Valley, looks normal at first. Then the dolls appear, 400 of them, scattered throughout the town, staring blankly at visitors. They sit at desks at the abandoned school, wait at the bus stop, fish by the river, frozen in time. Local artist Tsukimi Ayano began making them to replace lost friends and family, dressing them in their old clothes. Over time, the dolls outnumbered the living. The town has only 30 actual residents. There's something deeply unsettling about Nagoro. The dolls never move, but their presence lingers. Their faces are frozen, but turn a corner, and another one seems to be watching. A town where memories take physical form, and where the dead refuse to be forgotten. Number 12. La Recoleta Cemetery, Argentina. Some cemeteries are peaceful. This one isn't. La Recoleta Cemetery, nestled in Buenos Aires, is an ornate labyrinth of marble crypts, mausoleums, and 6,400 statues. It looks beautiful, but those who visit say something lingers. The most famous ghost? David Aleno, a gravedigger who spent 3 decades tending the cemetery. He saved every peso to commission a statue of himself, only to take his own life the day it was finished. To this day, visitors swear they hear keys jingling, as if he's still walking his rounds. Then there's Rufina Cambaceres, mistakenly buried alive. Days later, when her tomb was reopened, her body was found covered in scratch marks, her face frozen in terror. Even the city's official tourism board acknowledges the cemetery's haunted reputation. Walk through Recoleta, and you might feel something watching, waiting, a reminder that not everyone here is resting in peace. Number 11. Snake Island, Brazil. Call us prejudiced, but we don't love snakes. Whether venomous or not, there's something eerie about them. The way they slither, the way their forked tongues flicker like tiny whips that sets off every alarm in the human brain. Now imagine an entire island crawling with them. Not just a few, but one per square meter. That's Ilha da Queimada Grande, a 106-acre stretch of rainforest and rock off Brazil's coast, where golden lancehead pit vipers rule the land. These aren't your garden variety snakes. Their venom is so potent it can melt flesh, and they're everywhere. Over 430,000 of them. The Brazilian Navy keeps the island off limits, but whether they're protecting the snakes from people or people from the snakes is anyone's guess. They writhe over every surface, feeding on birds, small creatures, and even each other when foods run low. A place so infested it might as well have been designed by nightmares. And one place best admired from a very, very safe distance. Number 10. Mansfield Reformatory, Ohio. A prison so brutal that even Hollywood couldn't ignore it. Mansfield Reformatory, best known as the filming location for The Shawshank Redemption, has a history that makes fiction look tame. Built in 1896, this massive Gothic fortress was meant to reform criminals. Instead, it became a hellhole of violence, overcrowding, and death. Inmates wasted away in tiny, freezing cells, some driven to madness, others to murder. Guards weren't much better. Many were just as cruel as the criminals they watched over. By the time the prison shut down in 1990, it had seen suicides, riots, and untold suffering, and some say it's never been empty since. Visitors report phantom footsteps, cell doors slamming shut on their own, and shadowy figures lurking in the corridors. Brave enough? Ghost hunts and overnight stays are open to the public. But spend a night here, and it's easy to wonder, is this place haunted or just remembering? Well, you can't find it until you visit. Number 9. Beelitz-Heilstätten, Germany. Hospitals are meant to save lives, but imagine a one where suffering was the only prescription. Beelitz-Heilstätten, a massive hospital complex in Germany, has housed tuberculosis patients, wounded soldiers, and war victims for over a century. During World War I, it treated a young Adolf Hitler after he was wounded in battle. Later, during World War II, it became a Soviet military hospital, used well into the 1990s. Then, suddenly, it was abandoned, left to rot, untouched for decades. Now, its empty corridors, rusted medical tools, and collapsing walls create a scene straight out of a horror film. But the past never truly left. Visitors report phantom footsteps echoing through the halls, whispers from empty rooms, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. Some say the spirits of soldiers, doctors, and patients still roam the grounds, forever trapped in the hospital where they took their last breaths. For some, Beelitz-Heilstätten is just another abandoned building. For others, it's a hospital that never lets go of its dead. Number 8. Veijo Rönkkönen Sculpture Park, Finland. Most sculpture parks inspire wonder. This one watches you. Deep in the forests of Finland, the Veijo Rönkkönen Sculpture Park is home to 550 life-sized human figures, their blank faces frozen in eerie, silent judgment. Created by reclusive artist Veijo Rönkkönen, These statues are arranged in unnerving poses, some engaged in yoga, others staring from the shadows as if they know something you don't. The true horror? Some of these statues have real human teeth embedded in their mouths, making them disturbingly lifelike. The artist, who rarely spoke about his work, spent decades constructing his silent army, never allowing anyone to truly understand his vision. Now, the forest has reclaimed parts of the park, making the figures look even more unsettling, their cracked faces peering through the overgrowth. Some visitors report the feeling of being watched, but of course, it's just the statues. Or is it? Number 7. Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, West Virginia. A place meant for healing, but known only for suffering. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, built in the mid-19th centuries, was supposed to be a refuge for the mentally ill. Instead, it became a nightmare. Designed to house 250 patients, it eventually crammed in over 2,400, leading to horrific conditions, abuse, and madness. By the time it shut down in 1994, countless patients had died within its walls, many under mysterious circumstances. And some say they never left. Visitors report unexplained whispers, cold touches, and shadowy figures lurking in the long, decaying corridors. Now a National Historic Landmark, the asylum offers tours from March through November, with special ghost hunts in October. Paranormal investigators claim it's one of the most haunted locations in the U.S., a place where the past still lingers, trapped between sanity and something far worse. Would you dare step inside this creepy place? Well, we don't. Number 6. Sedlec Ossuary, Czech Republic. Some churches honor the dead. This one is built from them. The Sedlec Ossuary, also known as the Church of Bones, holds the remains of over 50,000 people, their skeletons woven into chandeliers, candelabras, and intricate decorations. It's a masterpiece of morbid artistry, created in 1870 when a local woodcarver was tasked with transforming the massive crypt of human remains into something beautiful. But walk inside, and beauty is the last thing that comes to mind. Skulls stare down from bone-laden ceilings, femurs form delicate arches, and entire walls are constructed from ribs and spines. The eerie silence is broken only by your own footsteps, echoing through a space that feels more like a shrine to death than a place of worship. Despite its grim aesthetic, it is considered holy ground, a place where the dead rest and visitors can see them. Number 5. Pripyat, Ukraine. Soviet architecture is eerie enough, soulless, gray concrete boxes, but Pripyat? It takes that bleakness and cranks it to full post-apocalyptic horror. Once home to over 40,000 people, it now stands completely abandoned, a casualty of the Chernobyl disaster. If radiation doesn't freak you out, maybe radioactive wolves will. They roam the ghost town, remnants of nature's slow takeover. But for me, it's not the wildlife or the glowing dust. It's the sheer emptiness. Schools with books still on desks, a Ferris wheel that never got to spin. Hallways froze mid-life as if people just vanished. Tour guides claim it's safe, grinning like they know something you don't. But even if you visit, something about Pripyat lingers long after you leave. Maybe it's radiation. Maybe it's just that feeling that something is still watching from behind those shattered windows. Number 4. Yonaguni Monument, Japan. Some things just don't add up. In simple words, they don't make sense. Most geologists insist Yonaguni is a Mother Nature creation, but if that's the case, why do they sound so unsure? This underwater structure, discovered by accident, features what look like staircases, terraces, and even roads. Masaki Kimura, a scientist, argues these are remnants of an ancient civilization, possibly dating back 10,000 years. But good luck getting mainstream experts to admit that. Diving down to see it is an experience in itself. The ocean is no forgiving landscape. The currents are vicious. Hammerhead sharks lurk nearby, and as you float through the ruins, the sensation creeps in. You shouldn't be here. Whether the monument is natural or not, something about it feels wrong. As if history buried something here and doesn't want it disturbed. And if we look at Japan, it's an earthquake and tsunami-loving country. So, this city can be pretty real. Number 3. The Suicide Forest, Japan. 13.5 square miles of trees so dense they swallow sound itself. No wind, no wildlife, just an unnatural silence. This is Aokigahara, but the world knows it by a different name, the Suicide Forest. Hundreds of people have ended their lives here. In 2010 alone, 200 attempts were recorded. The forest is so infamous that local authorities conduct annual searches for bodies. Ghosts, eerie, are said to wander here. But the true horror isn't the spirits, it's the why. Why this place, over and over? The sheer volume of deaths suggests something deeper, something pulling people in. Maybe it's psychological. Maybe it's something else. Tourists visit out of morbid curiosity, but step off the path and you might never find your way back. The silence will consume you, and if you hear a scream, pray it's just in your head. Number 2. The Gates of Hell, Turkmenistan. It's called the Darvaza gas crater, but the Gates of Hell fits better. In 1971, Soviet scientists set fire to a collapsed gas field, expecting it to burn out in a few days. It never did. For over 50 years, this crimson pit, 230 feet wide, has burned like a second sun, right in the middle of Turkmenistan's Karakum Desert. At night, it looks otherworldly, like something clawed up from beneath the surface and never left. People say standing near it makes you feel like you're at the edge of something far bigger than science. A simple accident shouldn't look this ominous. Turkmenistan isn't exactly a top-tier travel spot, but for the few who venture there, staring into this inferno feels less like sightseeing and more like looking into something we weren't meant to see. If you love things that are as strange, unique, as you, then this place is for you. Number 1. The Island of the Dolls, Mexico City. Mexico City is vibrant, alive, bursting with sound and color. But south of it lies a place of pure horror. A girl drowned there, and the island's owner, Don Julian Santana Barrera, swore he could hear her ghost crying for her doll. In an effort to appease her spirit, he covered the island in dolls, dangling from trees, nailed to walls, half buried in the soil. Then, he died the same way she did. Heart attack or not, locals whisper it wasn't natural. Over time, others added more dolls, and now they hang there, rotting, twisted, covered in cobwebs and insects. Some say the eyes follow you, some say they whisper at night. Skeptic? Fine. Then prove it. Stay overnight, alone, with only the dolls for company. If you make it till morning without hearing that little girl's voice, maybe you're braver than you think. Or maybe you just weren't listening hard enough. If you found this video interesting, like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.